All right, picture this. A U.S. Navy seaplane is on a top-secret mission, and it flies straight into a monster of an Antarctic snowstorm. On board, there are 9 men who are about to get thrown into one of the most unbelievable survival stories you've ever heard. Because this isn't just any crash story. It's the story of the only Antarctic plane crash that anyone ever walked away from. The most remote plane crash ever. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. We're not talking a few miles off the grid. We're talking no towns, no bases, absolutely nothing. Just a tiny little speck of twisted metal in the most brutal, unforgiving place on the entire planet. The second they went down, they were totally, completely on their own. So, the crew is flying just off the coast of Antarctica. The mission is super important, but the weather is turning ugly, and it's turning ugly fast. What started as just another flight is quickly becoming a fight for their lives as this storm just swallows them whole.
And then it gets even worse. The crew is caught in a complete whiteout. They can't see a thing. It's like flying inside a carton of milk. They are flying totally blind with absolutely no idea where the sky ends and the solid ice begins. And every single second is pushing them closer to a danger they can't even see.
And then, impact. A deafening bang as the plane smashes into a mountain, ripping a massive hole in its side. In an instant, 5,000 liters of fuel just ignite in this huge mid-air explosion. The aircraft comes hurtling down, scattering the wreckage and its crew all across the ice. So, you have to be asking, how in the world did these 9 guys end up in this impossible spot in the first place? Well, to get that, we need to hit rewind for a minute and look at the secret mission that brought them to the most dangerous continent on Earth. The year is 1946. World War II has just ended, and the United States is now looking at Antarctica. This huge, unclaimed continent was full of potential, and a new kind of Cold War was starting to brew over who was going to own it. So the U.S. launched Operation High Jump, a massive expedition with a secret mission to scout the land, set up bases, and basically plant the American flag there. And a really important piece of that whole operation was the crew of this seaplane, George 1. We're talking 9 men, pilots, radio guys, mechanics, a navigator, a photographer, and even the ship's captain. Each one had a job to do, and that job was to fly straight into the great and very dangerous unknown. So what actually caused the crash? Well, it all came down to a single fatal tech glitch. See, the plane's altimeter was being tricked by the thick ice sheet below it. It was telling the crew they were a safe 300 meters up in the air. But the reality? The ground was coming up to meet them, and it was coming up fast. The pilot made the call to turn around, but it was just a second too late. Okay, back to the crash site. The chaos of the impact is over. But for the survivors, the real fight, that's just getting started. They're hurt, they're stranded, and they're about to face 13 days in the most hostile environment in the world. Their number one enemy right off the bat was the cold, -20 degrees Celsius, and that's before you factor in the brutal, nonstop wind from the blizzard. This kind of cold wasn't just uncomfortable, it was a constant, deadly threat. The scene was just grim. 3 of the 9 crew members were gone, lost in the crash. The pilot, a guy they called Frenchie, was badly burned. Another survivor, Fred Williams, had a broken back. But that survival instinct, it kicks in hard. They managed to build a makeshift shelter inside the plane's broken tunnel, sealing one end off with a parachute. They found sleeping bags, tents, and their only food, some canned meat and soup. And the days just dragged on. For 3 solid days, the blizzard raged, making any kind of rescue totally impossible. On day 4, there was a break in the weather, and they were able to bury their friends under the snow. But man, the most agonizing moment probably came on day 7, when a rescue plane flew just 20 kilometers away. They were so close, but no one saw them. It would be another 6 long, freezing days before hope would return. But in the middle of all this chaos, the crew's resourcefulness was just incredible. One of the guys, Robbins, he finds a gas stove in the wreckage and gets it working by siphoning fuel from a spare tank. He basically became their chef, cooking up spinach soup and peanut butter on bread twice a day. It was this tiny piece of normal that kept them all going. And this right here tells you everything about the human spirit. The pilot, Frenchie, was suffering from horrible burns, frostbite, dehydration. He was literally slowly dying. And yet he never complained. not once. He even tried to crack jokes to keep everyone's morale up. It's just an almost unbelievable show of strength. On the morning of day 13, the crew is eating this meager breakfast of apricots when they hear it. A low rumble, shaking the ground, getting stronger and stronger. It's the rescue plane from their ship, the Pine Island. They'd finally been found. So the men just run outside, they're weaving their arms, they're screaming, they think their nightmare's finally over. But there was one massive problem. The rescue plane was a seaplane. It had no landing gear, so it couldn't touch down on the ice. Instead, it drops a note. And with that note came the crew's final, most brutal test. That was the message, a stark life-or-death choice. Walk 10 miles north to a frozen lake where the plane could actually land. If you think you can make the journey, join hands and make a circle. If you can't, form a straight line. Now, despite their injuries, their exhaustion, and just the sheer insanity of what they were being asked to do, they didn't hesitate for a single second. All 6 survivors joined hands and they formed a circle. But, being found wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of the final chapter. A grueling 10-mile journey through the Antarctic wilderness still stood between them and getting out of there alive. They strapped the badly injured Frenchie to a makeshift sled and started pulling him through snow that was chest-high. The trek took nearly 12 brutal hours. And just when they thought they'd finally made it, they come up against one last barrier, a 20-meter-high cliff of solid ice. Incredibly, they found a way down, and then, out of the mist, 2 men from the rescue plane appeared. They were finally safe. All 6 survivors made it back to the ship, and they lived to tell their incredible tale. But we also have to remember the 3 men who were lost. They're still buried there today, perfectly preserved under more than 100 meters of ice. And there's one last kind of haunting detail to this whole story. During their 13 days on the ice, Robbins found the photographer's camera in the wreckage. He actually took pictures of the crash site, but in that desperate final struggle to get to safety, the camera got left behind. That camera with its undeveloped film is still out there, just frozen in time. It's a time capsule of their whole ordeal, buried deep in the Antarctic ice. And it just leaves you wondering, what images of courage, of desperation, of pure survival does it hold, just waiting for someone to find it?